Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. Margaret is out today. Last week, we witnessed a series of shocking events around the world. After refusing to resign for months, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson finally succumbed to political pressure and quit. In Japan, a country with some of the toughest gun laws in the world, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot and killed during a campaign event. Here at home, 7 people were shot and killed and dozens injured while watching a 4th of July parade in Highland Park, a suburb of Chicago. So far this year in the U.S., there have been 327 mass shootings, 12 of them since that shooting a week ago. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Highland Park just after the shooting. We sat down with her in her ceremonial office on Friday, and that's where our conversation began.
When you meet with first responders, when you meet with families of these victims, you cannot avoid the reality of what the impact of this gun violence is on a community, on families, on people who love their community, who love their family member, and assault weapons. So let's just go right to that, assault weapons. Assault weapons were specifically and intentionally designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. It is a weapon of war. If you've ever looked at, if I may be so blunt, an autopsy photograph to see what it does to the human body, and the fact that we can't get Congress to renew, it's not like we're pulling something out of our hat. We've done it before as a nation. To renew the assault weapons ban is outrageous. And you can support the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. But we should agree we should not have weapons of war on the streets of America.
Why do so many mass shooters, often young men radicalized online, seem to still have access legally to weapons and to slip past red flag laws like those in Illinois?
Because those weapons are available. And we have to stop allowing those weapons to be available to civilians living in communities of people who have a right to believe that they are not in a war zone.
President Biden issued an executive order on abortion seeking to expand and bolster access. But so many Democrats in this country remain very angry about the recent Supreme Court decision. California Governor Gavin Newsom said this in May.
Where is the Democratic Party? Where's the party? Why aren't we calling this out? This is a concerted, coordinated effort. And yes, they're winning.
Is he right?
I think all of us share a deep sense of outrage that the United States Supreme Court took a constitutional right that was recognized, took it from the women of America. I mean, sit back and think about that for a moment. The highest court in our land just took a constitutional right that was recognized for women to make decisions about their own bodies. And so now we are looking at a situation where the government can tell a person in our country what they can and cannot do with their own body. You don't have to agree that you want to or would advocate that you or a loved one would have an abortion to agree that the government should not be making that decision for any individual woman.
Did Democrats fail, past Democratic presidents, congressional leaders, to not codify Roe v. Wade over the past 5 decades?
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right, and that's why I do believe that we are living, sadly, in real unsettled times. There's another example of this point, voting rights. The fundamental principle of our democracy is everyone should have access, who are entitled to have access to vote. And now you see states across the country that are intentionally making it more difficult for people to vote. We thought that was settled. We thought that was settled, at least by law, in the 60s. We look now at the issue of choice. We thought that was settled.
What will this administration do to try to codify Roe, to try to, through Congress, put into law some of these priorities?
What we will do through the executive branch to ensure that women have the ability to travel freely, unencumbered, that women will have access to the medication. But we also need Congress to act, because that branch of government is where we actually codify, which means put into law, the rights that, again, we took for granted, but clearly have now been taken from the women of America. We've seen this in the past. If you think about it, the Voting Rights Act, Congress acted. Civil Rights Act, Congress acted, because where there was any question, especially through the courts or any other system, about the sanctity of these rights, we decided as a nation we would put it into law. That's what we need to do with Roe and the principles behind Roe.
Some senators have suggested that Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh misled them during the confirmation hearings on Roe v. Wade. Some Democrats have even called for those justices to be impeached. Do you believe they should be impeached?
I start from the point of experience of having served in the Senate. I never believed them. I didn't believe them. That's why I voted against.
So what now, though?
We need to understand that states are passing laws because of what the Supreme Court has now allowed to happen. So what does this mean? It means that we're looking at elections coming up in 120-something days. They're going to be about who serves in Congress, and we need a pro-choice Congress. Again, you don't have to advocate or believe that this is right for you or your family, but don't let the government make the decision for her family, whoever she may be. It means state offices, governors, secretaries of state, attorneys general. It means local races. Who's going to be your DA? Who's going to be your sheriff? Enforcing laws that are being passed to criminalize medical health providers and maybe even the women who seek the service.
Basketball star Brittney Griner, she remains imprisoned in Russia. UN President Biden spoke with Sherelle Griner, her wife. You reassured her.
Yeah.
But what kind of reassurance is possible now? She has pled guilty. Is a prisoner swap on the table?
We take very seriously, and we've been very clear, Brittney Griner, and there are sadly other Americans who are being unlawfully detained around the world. And it is on our highest priority list to bring those folks home. I can't talk to you about the details of what's happening behind the scenes, but I can tell you that it is one of our highest priorities to bring these Americans home.
We're just months away from the midterm elections. Finish this sentence for me. Americans need to vote for Democrats in November because
our democracy is on the ballot. Truly. Truly. If you look at an issue like choice, it's on the ballot. A woman's right to make decisions about her own body and potentially what can happen in the not too distant future around issues like access to and making decisions about contraception or same-sex marriage. Elections matter. The people who are elected, especially to the United States Congress, will decide the outcome of all of these issues. Voting rights, the ability of us to pass voting rights legislation, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the Freedom to Vote Act, will be a function of who is in Congress.
When I go around the country as a reporter and I talk to Black Americans, they bring up voting rights. They also bring up police reform. And they say 2 years after George Floyd was killed, you have Jayland Walker in Ohio, 60 wounds from police officers.
60 gunshots.
And 60 gunshots. Gun violence still killing Black Americans from police officers. Polls, though, show that support for this administration among Black Americans has softened. How will you turn that around?
Black Americans, Americans in general, should be demanding, and rightly, that we pass legislation that addresses these issues that you have mentioned. I was an author of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. I believe very strongly that we should have accountability in all systems, including in policing.
But they're frustrated. Police reform is stalled.
You're right. I mean, but again, There is a connection between what we want to have happen and the power of Congress to actually make it happen when it comes to changing the laws, when it comes to writing and then putting in effect laws that create accountability and greater fairness in our system, be it our criminal justice system, be it our healthcare delivery system, all of that. But I will say this, what we have also seen is that Black Americans and all Americans said, look at the United States Supreme Court. There has never in the history of that court been a Black woman to serve. There now is. Because people stood in line in 2020 for hours, demanding that of the things that they would stand in line to see happen, there would be a Ketanji Brown Jackson on the United States, Ketanji Brown Jackson on the United States Supreme Court. So there are demands that were made by voters saying, these are the things we want out of this administration. And a lot of those demands have been met in the first year and a half. There's still more work to do, without any question.
Up on Capitol Hill, there is speculation among some Democrats and some Republicans that President Biden won't run for re-election in 2024. What's your message to those who say that?
Listen to President Biden. He intends to run. And if he does, I intend to run with him. So there you go.
Another run by former President Trump is possible. He is signaling that. Would that make it more likely that the president runs?
He did it before.
Another issue is immigration. Texas Governor Greg Abbott this week authorized state officials there to arrest migrants and take them to federal border crossing facilities. And he's blamed the administration for the immigration issue in his state. He's called it a, quote, invasion. What will the administration do about Governor Abbott's decision and the migrant issue?
I would suggest that so-called leaders focus on solutions instead of attacks if they really are concerned about a problem. And that includes, on the issue of immigration, passing a pathway for citizenship, fixing what, in particular under the prior administration, was a badly broken system, so that we can have a humane and appropriate approach to this issue, including, of course, what we will continue to do in terms of prioritizing border security, but understanding we also need to create a pathway. And that's where I think everyone should be focused if they're actually concerned about solutions instead of flame throwing.
Vice President Harris, thank you very much for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bob.
Good to be with you.